Howdy. If you ever asked me what my favorite video game genre would be, I'd probably be stumped for a good 20 minutes since my indecisiveness causes me to hard reset like a Windows computer, but afterwards I'd say my favorite would be platformers. More specifically, 3D platformers. What can I say, I grew up on older consoles like the Nintendo 64 where those things were in abundance. I was practically raised off them, though most of those platformers were definitely just a mixture of Mario or licensed kids games. I played a lot more Ratatouille than I'm willing to admit. But 3D platformers are a rather specific niche in the gaming space, at least for a good portion of its life. However, back during the 5th console generation, these things were everywhere. They practically jump scare you with the overabundance. Look under your bed, you'll find a copy of Glover. And this all started thanks to one particular game that kicked off the entire genre, Super Mario 64. This one game practically changed the entire industry itself. So much so that specific games and studios were forced to adapt to be even half as good as it. Even Sony was getting in on the craze with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro just to try to one-up Nintendo, despite them having 4 times the console sales. But despite the abundance of all these platformers, one company was shooting these out faster than any other and consistently made banger after banger. I'm of course talking about Rareware. Rare was a company that was pretty much synonymous with Nintendo back in the 90s. So much so that Nintendo actually outsourced some of their first-party IPs for them to develop, such as Donkey Kong Country back on the Super Nintendo. Though, Rare actually had a few ideas for games of their own that they wanted to develop, and even had several teams working on projects such as this. One of these teams in particular was developing a game simply called Project Dream, a game with an isometric view and began life back on the Super Nintendo with elements and inspiration from The Legend of Zelda. However, the game at the time was proving to be far too large for the system, and soon production was moved to Nintendo's newest console, the Nintendo 64, where they have an amazing sum of breathing room. Well, more than the Super Nintendo. Production, though, seemed to have been going relatively smoothly through the transition, though that production would be immediately halted after the team was shown an early version of Super Mario 64. The team was baffled by it and completely taken back, so much so that they felt that Dream as it was would be too stale in comparison to it. So the team basically completely threw out the original idea for it and began making change after change to be more in line with Mario's newer formula. First, they decided to get rid of their protagonist Edsoon in favor of an animal lead. They went back and forth with different characters and designs up until they landed on this cute little sketch of an anthropomorphic bear they named Banjo the Honey Bear. Originally, his design was still rather Zelda-inspired, though this did change a lot during production. He went from a swordsman to a pirate to a basketball player, all leading to this almost skater-looking design, which is adorable. Though this was later changed too, with removing the hat and drip, leaving us with only the simple yellow shorts, backpack, and tooth necklace. During development of Banjo's moveset, they wanted to incorporate a double jump, but wanted to give more of a reason for it, so they came up with a pair of wings that would sprout from Banjo's backpack to fly him skyward. And in the Rareware fashion, they of course had to make this pair of wings a character. Following with the instrument theming of the names, she was given the name Kazoo. The project name Dream didn't really fit the new direction that the game was going for anymore, so the game would later be renamed to Banjo Kazooie. That was already copyrighted. Banjo Kazooie. This game was my goddamn childhood. I used to play this thing religiously when I was a kid. I remember going to my mom's house for the weekend and my entire schedule was dedicated primarily to the Funny Bear game. I'd wake up, make French toast sticks, play Banjo. I had a very busy schedule for an 8-year-old. Nostalgia aside though, I love this game. Like, no kidding when I say that I was honestly worried about getting footage for this video, that I would have that really depressing scenario of replaying a game you have so much love for, and then finding out that game wasn't really as fun as you remember it being. But either way, I booted up the game, just started playing for a while, and well, I got glued to the screen for a while. Like, it was honestly really fun to just jump back in and re-experience this game I loved from all those years ago, and still have a similar level of enjoyment that I had for it when I was a kid. Not as many games that I used to love when I was younger really hold that same merit like this one does for me. I mean, I remember trying to climb further up Gruntilda's lair, or go back down and explore other worlds I might have missed, or maybe just mess around and get lost in them. Like how Rusty Bucket Bay gave me a free demo in Life. So I basically just wanted to kind of pick at this game and figure out why it's still so damn memorable to me, and clearly so many other people. Why is it so fun and charming to play even now? Well, there's a bear. The story itself is rather simple. We start out with an opening shot to a rather horrifyingly face-carved rock in the mountainside. Slowly creeping up the spiral staircase and opening a large wooden door introduces us to our main witch herself, Gruntilda, who's having a rather fun afternoon talking about her good looks and how she stands out from a crowd to her sentient crockpot. The pot, on the other hand, brings up another girl by the name of Tootie that he finds fairer than she. So naturally, Homegirl gets rather livid from this and decides to do the only logical thing to beat the girl prettier than her. Following beauty tip number 64. Abduction. She kidnaps Tootie right outside her house so that Grunty could drain her youth for herself. Kazooie, hearing the cartoonish commotion outside, tries to wake up Tootie's brother Banjo, who managed to sleep through the rather loud kidnapping sounds somehow. The two then head outside to assess the situation, learn from a mole named Bottles that she was kidnapped by the witch Gruntilda, and so the two embark to her lair to save Banjo's sister. There's not really anything huge story-wise here. I mean, this ain't Kingdom Hearts storytelling.
Who are you?
I'm what's left. Or maybe I'm all there ever was.
I meant your name.
It's mostly just here to give a good sense of personality to each of our characters, introduce us to said characters, and give us the motivation to be climbing further and further up the tower in the first place. I think it does a rather good job at that. I mean, most mainline Mario games are just Bowser kidnapping Peach anyway, and that's the story. So technically speaking, this is like Shakespeare. Mario 64 is going to be a game I bring up a lot during this video since it was the closest example and blueprint of a 3D platformer in general. In 64, you have the dynamic of going from world to world, collecting power stars to then open more of Peach's castle for you to explore, and so on and so forth. Banjo Kazooie follows a somewhat similar structure itself, but with some notable differences. Banjo Kazooie is what's known as a Collect-A-Thon, which is a specific type of 3D platformer where the main focus is dropping you in a world and littering it to the brim with random shit. There's things like notes, feathers, eggs, skulls, honeycombs, and of course, jiggies. Jiggies are basically this game's stand-in for power stars as they help you to access the many different worlds in the game. Essentially, every world has a puzzle missing a couple of pieces, and through collecting enough jiggies, you can finish the puzzle and unlock said world to explore through. Each world has about roughly 10 jiggies littered around the place that can usually be obtained through helping a character, solving a puzzle, turtle abuse, or just completing a semi-difficult platforming challenge. Notes as well are incredibly important in this game. The majority of the lair itself is separated by these note doors, which basically completely halts your progress in place till you've gathered a high enough note score. Each world has about 100 of these little guys scattered across the place, which I feel helps tie each world together and incentivize you to check every little crevice to find each and every one. Why? Because collecting them is fucking addicting. Like, just the simple musical jingle of collecting a note is just so satisfying. Also, I feel most people have some form of OCD, and just seeing that you've only collected like 83 notes is going to haunt your dreams at night. The worlds themselves have a different structure in terms of how you approach them. Unlike Mario 64, where you're intended to get booted out several times after collecting a star, when you enter a world in Banjo Kazooie, you're basically intended to run through that world in one fell swoop. No getting booted out after collecting a jiggy, no random extra thing stopping your progress. When you enter a world, you gotta finish it, at least mostly. In the original Nintendo 64 release of the game, there was a little, extra condition. Every time you enter a world and collect a note, your note score goes up. Simple, right? Well, let's say you ate shit really bad or mistimed a jump that sent you catapulting to your death, you'd respawn at that world's portal, with all of the previous notes you've collected back where they were. The game does keep the highest score of notes you've collected, though if you want to raise said score, you'd have to recollect all of those notes till you pass your old score. Meaning if you were just a couple of notes short of that door, you'd have to recollect all of those notes from the beginning to beat your previous score. It can definitely be a bit of an annoying chore, but I do feel it adds a great sum of challenge to the game, making you actually be a bit more careful about how you approach each and every situation. Though I will say that the latter levels of the game can be so downright unfair that I can easily see why the Xbox release decided to allow the notes to be saved to kind of heavily lessen that annoyance. However, I still think it would have been nice for there to have been an option to save your note score or not to kind of keep the original challenge of the original. Think about the masochists. Having a good way of movement is rather important in a game of any kind. Extremely important if your entire game is literally built around said movement to be precise, responsive, and overall fun to use. If a platformer has bad movement, you're gonna hate about 90% of it. Would you believe Banjo's moveset is actually good? You don't? Banjo's moveset is honestly rather genius when you get down to it, as Banjo and Kazooie utilize each other's best attributes to be one hard-hitting duo. There's your standard Banjo jump. Bears jump, right? Then there's the Featherly Flap, where Kazooie uses her wings to give Banjo a double jump, and even provide a temporary hover as a bit of a grace period in case you really miscalculated that jump. But it can only do so much for you. Fighting-wise, there's Banjo's standard attack, the Claw Swipe, which is self-explanatory, as well as a forward roll. You roll forward. The Rat-a-tat-rap, yes, that's the real name, has Kazooie come out to cause violence and do an overhead jab, with her Beak Barge being a lower, more impactful jab. It can also break boulders with her face. These are pretty much the standard moves you get right out the gate in the tutorial world of this game, Spiral Mountain. And I personally think it's a really great lineup with the major moves you need to remember for most of the platforming going forward. You know, jump, double jump, backflip, violent swimming. I will say the tutorial can be a little bit tedious. I mean, Mario 64 never really had a tutorial. Why did this game need one? Well, not only is it actually helpful to know how to do a great amount of the moves in the game instead of having to guess, but also because most of the game actually requires your in-tune knowledge of how the moveset works if you want to actually play most of the game, especially the latter levels. And by the way, Spiral Mountain does actually have, hear this one guys, a skip button. I know, pretty insane stuff. Okay guys, let's settle down now. Now, the further you progress through Gruntilda's lair, the more moves you'll find, as specific worlds can contain a new move, or even two for that matter, that'll help you with traversal. Mumbo's Mountain, for example, introduces us to the Beak Buster as your typical ground pound using Kazooie's face, as well as the best move in the entire game, the Talon Trot. This move is goated. The Talon Trot is where Kazooie, after getting really impatient with Banjo's slow-ass speed, takes charge and carries Banjo as she goes twice the speed out of spite, as well as being able to stick to slopes easier due to her talons. This move, at least for me, is the one I clearly get the most mileage out of, especially since the worlds themselves are practically like 40% slope. Treasure Trove Cove brings us the Shock Spring Jump, which, using these green chicken leg pads, allows Kazooie to use her talons to spring her and Banjo about 2 stories high. Pretty useful for those hard to reach jumps. There's also Kazooie's Flying, which by using a feather pad lets the two of them soar into the sky and fly at their leisure, though it requires feathers to flap higher up. You see, in most platformers, a flying mechanic may or may not be considered broken to an extent, since you can clear a great hurdle of the platforming challenges literally intended for you to platform off of. But I feel the way that Banjo did it doesn't, for 2 different reasons. One, the levels themselves are clearly made with the flying in mind, such as Treasure Trove Cove or even Freezeezy Peak, where specific objectives straight up require flying to access or complete. And 2, the only way to fly is by locating these specific launch pads, which are placed rather strategically to make sure the player doesn't just randomly fly in an area that wasn't really built for it as much. Like Bubblegloop Swamp, that doesn't really have any of these pads and instead forces you to have to find ways to traverse around the murky water like a game of floor is lava. But in this game, the floor is piranhas. Though I feel another way they actually helped with the over-reliance on flying is with the notes, since you do have to cover a great sum of ground anyway to find the majority of them, and the moment that you land on the ground, Kazooie's wings are basically stapled to it. You ain't getting up without another pad. Bubblegloop Swamp literally has notes in the water itself that require you to either use the wadding boost to traverse through, or turn into Anyway, here's Wonder Wing. Other than being a Smash player's worst nightmare, Wonder Wing is just straight up invulnerability from all attacks and or sharp objects of the stabbing variety. Despite being what should be the most useful move in this regard, since it's basically an ability from the Divine, I'm not gonna lie, I've forgotten about this move more times than I can count. Like, the only times throughout the entire game I've ever really used Wonder Wing is when the game pretty much downright requires it. Like this branch-covered hallway that's literally impossible to pass without getting hit, to my knowledge. Pretty obvious section where an invincible move would actually come in handy, right? And finally, we have the Turbo Talon Trot, which just gives Kazooie a pair of sneakers and makes her go supersonic. I will say that this specific ability is actually rather fun to have, though this is actually shown to you as early as Bubblegloop Swamp, but you don't unlock it for another 2 worlds. You can only see it twice before getting it, but it's just taunting you. I could have finished the world. I got all the notes, most of the Jiggies and Jinjos, and yet there it remains. It's making fun of me, isn't it? Banjo has one of the best movesets to me, hands down, for a platformer, with how fun it is to control and move around from perilous ledge to ledge. The general way of getting these abilities, I feel, are actually done in a rather nice progressive way. Like Mario 64 starts out with pretty much only giving you a basic moveset and just sending you off. While Banjo Kazooie, on the other hand, gives you a basic moveset as well, but also introduces newer moves along the way the further you tread on, giving a great sense of growth and does a good job at making things feel fresh with every new addition. Though they stop giving you newer moves past the 6th world in the game, which I actually feel is a rather appropriate time for you to get your entire list of moves, since the coming worlds become more and more difficult and require a greater attunement to said moveset. The general progression of each world I feel is actually done in a rather great way and perfectly adjusts the difficulty appropriately, rather than having a world filled with instant death pits right out the gate. There's something about the worlds in this game, like each one feels rather alive and filled with so much personality and charm that makes them such a blast to play through. There's a total of 9 worlds in the game excluding Spiral Mountain, and each one has such a unique atmosphere and vibe that makes each one so damn memorable. Mumbo's Mountain, for example, is like this game's more subtle tutorial world, with teaching you the general gameplay loop of finding notes and jiggies scattered about. They do a great job throughout the level of showing their uses, with the slopes on the side for Kazooie's Trot to show you how Kazooie has more grip on slopes than Banjo, or the ground pound that has you destroying tribal housing. The world itself has such a fun, charming vibe to it, with the fields and such mixed with the tribal feel given to it by Mumbo's Mound on top of the hill, giving a rather unique identity than your typical grassy plateau level of sorts. A particular theme you'll find with most of these levels is that a good some of them have a giant set piece of some kind in the center of the map, and the many branching paths of the level itself are built around it. I've always seen this type of level design to honestly be rather genius, mostly because navigating a level in an area can be difficult at times without specific landmarks and such to ground you and remind you where you are. Otherwise, you're just gonna get lost. A lot. Subnautica, weirdly enough, would actually be a great example of this level design. The ocean is such a vast place in this game, and navigation can be extremely difficult due to the great amount of underwater fog and lack of map. Though, typically when I get lost in the game or want to make sure where I am, I just surface to find the crash site of the Aurora and generally deduct my location depending on how far I am from it or which end of the vessel I'm seeing, basically using the Aurora as a compass of sorts. A rather extreme example, I know, but I still feel having a central location to constantly see and notice which side you're on, I think really helps with figuring out where you are. And I'm honestly rather sure the level designers had this philosophy in mind while developing the worlds. Treasure Trove Cove, on the other hand, has a more shipwreck castaway island vibe going for it. The level itself is almost twice as big as Mumbo's Mountain, while also having a lot more verticality with this little lighthouse section on top of the cove. This is the world we learned to fly with Kazooie, so the verticality feels perfectly suited for this new level of movement we're given. Going further into the island has us find a comically shipwrecked vessel by the name of the Salty Hippo, where we can meet a pirate by the name of Captain Blubber, who's experiencing a great sense of undiagnosed depression. But it's okay, because there's one surefire trick to cure any deep depression. Pay them. You can break into the shipwreck itself and dive deep in the water to find both of his gold bar piles to bring back up to him. A lot of this game has these really cool creative sub-areas that nicely break up the level in such fun ways. But of course, this is still a beach level, so there's bound to be untold riches and adventure waiting for you in the sea beyond. Clanker's Cavern, on the other hand, is such an imposing setting in comparison to Treasure Trove Cove, with being a much more claustrophobic, rusty, metallic-covered cavern with what appears to be just straight-up gasoline-engulfed water. It's such a murky, filth-covered area, which provides such a fun shift in the atmosphere. Pushing further into the level and through these narrow pipes introduces us to... This is Clanker, the fish single-handedly responsible for thalassophobia. He's also the bestest sport. Gruntilda basically didn't really feel like getting a bin for her trash, so, you know, she decided to make a half-metallic, half-organic whale to eat her garbage for her instead. The entire level itself revolves around Clanker, with it basically taking place in his tank of sorts. You can as well go below Clanker to his chain deep below the surface and actually loosen it for him with the most anxiety-inducing music playing I've ever heard, and once you do, he'll flow back up to the surface and reward you with a jiggy. Though, with him on the surface, suddenly a great sum of the level just opened up. There's several branching pipes with collectibles or even ledges and such high up requiring you to use Clanker's fins to reach them. Even his blowhole can catapult you to this super high section for a perilous jiggy. After giving him a much-needed dentist appointment as well, you can venture within Clanker and find a whole extra world inside his belly, which, yes, despite how disgusting it is, you can't deny it's not incredibly creative level design. Though I will say it's a pretty weird place for bottles to teach you a new move, though, is Is my man burrowing through the fish? I will say though, as an adult, I find this giant metallic fish as being incredibly derpy looking and even surprisingly kinda adorable, but he does appear to be a strange mix between a metallic and an organic fish in design, which honestly is a little bit morbid when you think about it for a little too long. Bubblegloop Swamp perfects that, swamp aesthetic with the murky gloopy water, the moss-covered hilltops, and huge off mosquitoes. So you know, Louisiana the level. The entire world has about 4 separate branching paths. The egg, the strangely high huts, the giant turtle with a choir inside for some reason, and the giant gator head with a maze behind it. The maze is rather cool for a part of the level, though the prize is Mumbo's hut, and I'ma be honest, it can get super annoying to have to retread through the maze multiple times just so I can transform, but it's all for the bestest boy, so I suppose it's a worthy trade. This is one of the earliest examples of some backtracking in these levels with the gator minigame. Inside the gator head, you can find this red gator who wants to play a little game of eating the most grubs. Though, you do have to do this about 3 times, with the last one being an alternating one, where this guy is absolutely on something, because he's too goddamn fast with those stubby legs. Generally speaking, you can kind of notice that he starts to go extremely fast, especially on the 3rd one, and it's almost near impossible to actually beat him. It is possible, but extremely difficult to do so. Though if you do take a gander to the back end of the room, you can notice a pair of translucent sneakers basically trying to nudge you in terms of saying, you're gonna have to backtrack here later. You're intended to go unlock the sneakers, then come back and go twice the speed to beat him. I'd call it cheating if he wasn't also clearly on crack himself. This gator. Gobi's Valley is our trademarked platformer desert, yet despite the great abundance of said deserts, Banjo's is probably the most unique of the bunch. The level itself has a sort of Egyptian Arabic design going for it, with things like the giant sentient sphinx, the many different pyramids sprinkled around the valley, and the giant mummified hands reaching out to squash you like a grape. You know, typical Egyptian things. There's so many parts to this level that makes it feel rather vast for such a small valley. Like you can enter this pyramid with a snake charmer inside, and by offering him a couple eggs into his basket, he charms the snake to grow to the damn ceiling so you can collect a Jiggy. Or, by using the sneakers and getting inside this extremely small window timed door, you can collect this Jiggy inside, opening the door and letting the water spill out into the moat surrounding the center plateau, which allows you to collect these notes and such without getting hurt by your local sandworm representatives. You can even feed these statues with eggs around said plateau to access the secret pyramid, where yeah, this maze actually isn't super difficult in all honesty. You can mess up a good few and still have time to spare to reach the exit. But you know, as a kid, nothing's more terrifying than a mummy, a stopwatch, and anxiety-inducing music that just keeps getting faster. I feel in comparison to Shifting Sandland from Mario 64, I feel Gobi's Valley has a lot more personality and life overall for its scorched desert, as well as being a lot more fun overall with the great amount of things to do and find in the valley rather than being the definition of pain. Freezeezy Peak is just... It's just a great level, honestly. It has a rather nice Christmas-inspired vibe, reminiscent of old Christmas movies in a way. Not sure why though. There's a rather unique minigame where you have to guide these sentient Christmas lights to the Christmas tree nearby. Pretty simple, I mean, it's only like a couple feet away, can't really be that hard. This level as well is one of the coolest set pieces in my opinion, with the enormous snowman that you can see center stage right as you enter the world itself that just stares. It's honestly such a lovely set piece, and it's incredibly fun to climb up the snowman and reach the highest points and just look around the world itself. That, or take the sled down the end of the scarf and land right on this disappointment of a father. Look, the man legitimately ate a Jiggy and almost died, yet when we save him, instead of him running back to his kids that are not even a mile away that he could have never seen again, the man just goes back sledding against random strangers he finds on the side of the road. It's fine though, because we can find his kids some presents scattered around the level. That'll make them forget about their future abandonment issues. This world as well is about the purest example of how the flying in this game was made in tune with the levels themselves. For instance, you can take a flight pad up to the very top of the snowman to fight a semi-secret boss that you physically can't reach by normal means. That, or learn Bottles' new move for this world that basically turns Kazooie into a ballistic missile. See, this game does what no other platformer ever had the balls to do. Turn their characters into weapons of war. Mad Monster Mansion is probably my favorite world aesthetically. It's just so damn fun and creative, going for that much more spooky Halloween-y vibe with the giant mansion being center stage here. In a similar manner with how I described Luigi's Mansion, the level itself has that perfect feeling of whimsical spookiness, but with a mixture of genuine unease. Unlike most spooky levels in Cube platformers, Mad Monster Mansion actually feels creepy, with the skeleton mummies that never die, the unkillable ghosts that chase you through walls, or the most terrifying thing of all, The mansion itself is made up of several sub-areas, filled with things like skeletons, ghosts, or sentient toilets. One cool set piece of this manor is by going into the main entrance here that introduces us to this big lad with a jiggy lying asleep in the middle of this enormous room. Though if you step past the front carpet, you can startle him awake losing the jiggy, kind of forcing you to play a game of the floor is lava in order to not wake him up. Though, from the front entrance at least, there's physically no way to reach the table where he resides. Though, if you're observant enough, you can notice a line of chairs coming from the fireplace on the back end of the room leading to the table. Perhaps the chimney could be an entrance. Well, if you were to inspect the roof, you would be able to find said secret entrance and find your way to the table to steal the jiggy. It's a really cool way to incentivize thinking outside of the box. Though, to be fair, a good sum of players may have just stumbled across the entrance without noticing, but either way, it's still cool. Meanwhile, outside the manor, we can find a giant Ouija board house, a well with sentient branches, a ghost-infested hedge maze, by the way, these ghosts sometimes, and even an old church lying on the back end of the world. It has so much going on, and so much to explore in every corner. Not to mention that while the majority of the level appears to go for that sort of whimsical spook out of a Halloween special of sorts, that entire vibe changes on a dime the moment we approach the old church. The music suddenly becomes much more uneasy and even more foreboding in a way, giving a great sense of intimidation by this specific part of the world, and showing how genuinely creepy this world can actually get. Rusty Bucket Bay has this sort of industrial seaport thing going on with the oil-covered water, tin roof-covered shipyards, and of course the iconic cargo vessel in the port. This level is pretty much the most bleak-looking area in the entire game, with the factory smoke-covered skies and soot-covered ground, which also makes it one of the most unique levels looks-wise. Kind of the same reasoning why Clanker's Cavern stands out as much as it does with its more rusty metal look. But unlike Clanker's, this world is actually pretty goddamn hard. This level is infamous for being one of the toughest levels in the entire series, which, just taking a stroll around, can kind of help you instantly see that. You basically have to use the extremely sloped roofs of the shipyards to traverse around. The water itself isn't really super explorable due to the oil of the water weighing down traversal, as well as draining your oxygen twice as fast. And I mean, hell, there's a goddamn lake of just toxic waste you can just traverse through by using these very floaty barrels to save this one Jinjo just chillin'. I seriously don't know what the got into these Jinjos, but they seriously are just asking to get abandoned on the side of the road. Like, one of them's just drowning underwater, while another is just perked on this extremely tight section near the gates, as well as this guy who's just abandoned on this buoy for some reason. Oh, you motherfucker! Just like Clanker's Cavern as well, the entire level revolves around the giant cargo ship, with a great sum of rooms and compartments you can explore within the vessel itself. Like going through the propeller to find a secret compartment, or breaking and entering into random people's cabins, or even okay, we gotta talk about it. This is the engine room. Could you tell? This room is the most infamous section of, well, honestly, 3D platformers in general. So, what makes it so terrifying and rage-inducing, you didn't ask? Well, as you can observe, this is a room with many moving parts and at insane speeds. You have these little safe places of platforms to jump to, but to get to them, you have to balance on these extremely slippery pipes that also move every so often, so you've got to time it just right. As well as these little platforming things with a really tight window, as well as these fans that you simply just can't get past without having hit this button in a completely different room you didn't know about until about right now. Level design. For most first-time players especially, this room can be a nightmare simply because you probably wouldn't have found this room till either halfway through to even the end of exploring the world itself. Just a couple more notes and a jiggy and you're golden. World complete. It'll be easy. You just gotta walk calmly over this. If there's one thing I'll always remember in my adult life, it's to do the engine room first. Then something about taxes. Despite this world definitely being considered the hardest or even least favorite world to a lot of people, I still like it. Like, don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of pain from this level, and I remember always dreading getting to it, but replaying it now, I do have some appreciation for it, and still feel it's a rather creative level that really puts your skills to the test. Despite its bullshittery, I can't really imagine the game without it. Mostly. Though we can't just talk about the worlds without talking about the one that links them together. Gruntilda's Lair is by far one of the best hub worlds, period. It is such a fun and interesting place to traverse with so many secret areas to find or branching paths to explore. This tower in general has so much more going on to the point of it feeling like its own world rather than being the place to connect the others. I mean, the Lair has 10 secret jiggies just like every other world, so it's basically considered one with you just slowly progressing further and further into it. Like Peach's castle, as much as I still love it, pales in comparison to Grunty's Lair. It's also just so much more varied in design and aesthetically pleasing. Like each world entrance is almost like a diorama of the world you're about to enter. Like Bubblegloop Swamp and its murky moss-covered bridge and swampy water below leading to a hut. Or Gobi's Valley and its literal sand pit and Egyptian aesthetic. These entrances honestly feel almost like a museum in a way. You know, like a fake terrain or an area made to give you an idea of what something used to look like. It almost feels like the world itself is bleeding out into Grunty's Lair, which is just so damn creative as an idea. But we're not even mentioning the great amount of passageways, secret or not, that are littered around this lair. Some of these can lead to things like a shortcut with these cauldrons or finding a world's puzzle to complete, as well as some to keep a note of for later, as well as finding potential upgrades with this guy named Cheeto. Basically, if you find some of his secret spots in the lair, he'll reward you with a secret code of sorts to put in the sand castle back in Treasure Trove Cove to activate a cheat. These cheats are basically just upgrades for increasing your consumable item limits, but masked as a straight up cheat code. It's just such a rare way to do it. To make a minor upgrade like literal cheating with the way you get them, like I swear to God, this honestly seemed like an old game rumor from back in the day, equivalent to the damn L is real rumor from Mario 64. But this one's actually real, unlike Luigi. This place is massive too for a hub world. Hell, for just a world in general. Here's a map of the damn place. As you can see, there's a couple things going on. The worlds themselves, at least in my opinion, are actually pretty damn well constructed, outside of a few. But I've just been talking about the worlds themselves and not the very thing that glues it all together and really brings these worlds to life. I don't think I'll realize how much I was holding back this entire video so far to not talk about the music. The music of Banjo Kazooie is just so damn catchy and bouncy and filled with so much charm and personality and xylophones. There's just so much personality put into each and every theme that makes them so damn pleasing to listen to and helps to make each world feel so much more filled with life and atmosphere. Each world has its own sort of instrumentation to add to their overall aesthetic and makes the themes extremely memorable and catchy as a result. Like, it's not a joke when I say that I hum just about every theme in this game on a weekly basis. That's how you know you have a pretty damn catchy soundtrack. Hey, what's your favorite music artist? Bear. Mumbo's Mountain, for example, has a rather uplifting and joyful theme, one that feels perfect for the beginning of an adventure with its use of reed flutes, banjo, and the iconic xylophone, tying all the other instruments together beautifully to create such a peppy theme. And when you do decide to trot on over to this mound on top of the hill, the music begins to shift to a rendition primarily made of drums and even chanting to fit the more tribal feel of Mumbo himself. And to add even more atmosphericness to the world, they mix in a couple of common sounds of each environment to give that sense of life in each land you visit. Mumbo's, for example, mixes the sounds of birds chirping and cawing in the distance occasionally. Or, another little detail, if you go near one of the giant termites in the level, you can subtly hear them repeating. That's just some pretty damn great attention to detail. Treasure Trove Cove, on the other hand, uses the sound of ocean waves and sea shanty-esque instruments to enhance the overall shipwreck pirate vibe of the level. And of course, out of any of the instruments you can hear, one definitely shines more than any other, that being the steel pan, being an instrument commonly used for more tropical style music. Mixed with that iconic xylophone that's practically Banjo's trademark musical instrument, it just creates such a perfect tropical atmosphere for the level. Another detail I'm going to force you to notice is a detail when you reach the top of the island with the lighthouse. It leaves you with such an absence of music, with only the sounds of seagulls in the distance and the sea air whistling past your ear. It's such a perfect mood shift and makes this area especially feel a lot more engraved in your mind. Though that could just be because of the goddamn clams. The theme of Clanker's Cavern uses the sound of dripping water mixed with deep bass instruments to add to that rusty murkiness of the cavern, while the xylophone and reed flutes add still a bit of whimsical uncertainty to the piece that still keep that sort of banjo signature to it. Honestly, it's a theme that I feel fits Clanker rather well, with the deep bass representing the more rusty and crude appearance of him, while the xylophone and flutes provide almost an opposing feeling of comfort in a way, representative of his personality. Look, I'm not a music expert, I'm just spouting random bullshit that comes out of my mouth whenever I hear these tracks. Bubblegloop Swamp's theme uses the sound of, well, gloop sounds from the murky water, frog ribbits harmonizing on cue, along with a great mix of sax and xylophone to really capture that bayou aesthetic. All you really need is a double barrel going off in the distance, and that southern vibe would be on point. But I guess I would just stay as my second favorite song. Also my ringtone. Howdy.
Where are your taxes?
Freezeezy Peak uses instrumentation right out of an old Christmas movie, with the use of strings accompanied by bells occasionally to really just add to that overall joyful and magical feeling of, well, Christmas. It's just so grand sounding. Like, I truly feel you could rip this theme out and add it to just about any classic Christmas movie, and it would fit pretty damn perfectly. Hell, there's even Christmas bells that start to ring when you walk near the enormous Christmas tree. Now that is attention to detail. Gobi's Valley opposingly has a very Arabic vibe to it, with the use of wind instruments, along with a good beat on the drums from what I think is a darbuka? Don't quote me on that, I'm quite dumb. And of course, mixed with the sounds of vultures calling, rattlesnakes, and the sound of something burrowing beneath the sand, really just encapsulates so much personality. It's funny, because most games, and even media for that matter, portray deserts as being this sort of dead wasteland with nothing but sand, cacti, and Anakin Skywalker for some reason. Yet Gobi's Valley opposingly feels so filled with life and charm around every distant corner. It's so refreshing in all honesty, and adds a great sum of uniqueness that really helps it stand out compared to them. Rusty Bucket Bay uses saxophone and xylophone together beautifully, making the perfect theme for an oil-covered harbor. The bass is center stage here, empowering the entire theme with a much more kicked-back xylophone that you can hear clearly, but at times can get a bit overshadowed. Almost like the whimsicalness of the xylophone is being masked by the more brashness of the sax. Mixed with the sounds of ocean waves as well as seagulls in the distance adds even more so to this rust-covered seaport that's almost sort of enchanting in its own way. Its own gross, oil-covered, disgusting way. Finally, Mad Monster Mansion is downright one of my favorite themes in this game. The world uses a brilliant mixture of organ music and strings to really capture that uneasiness and spook factor of a haunted mansion. Here, it's mixed with the sounds of owls, frogs, and even distant wolf howls to really make this place feel right out of an old horror film. And I mean, if you want the purest example of adaptive music, we literally have a section where as a pumpkin, we get to flush down a sentient toilet. Could you possibly guess what they use for the instrumentation of this secret area? They literally made a rendition of the Mad Monster Mansion theme with a deep bass mixed with the sounds of bubbling, burps, and farting. You truly feel like you're deep diving into someone's 3 a.m. after Taco Bell. If that's not dedication to your craft, then I don't know. Anyway, moving past that, I'd love to highlight the song that plays when you finally enter the old church. When you enter the large cathedral, the song changes to a rendition with the use of an organ primarily being used, adding such a foreboding feeling and such a dramatic tone shift in comparison to the more whimsicalness of the main theme. I just love how the organ itself is just so center stage here, not only musically, but aesthetically, with it being the largest structure in the room at the back end of the hall. The theme overall is just so much slower and more atmospheric of an old church organ, giving a great sense of unease and intimidation. The church itself is such an interesting place design-wise. The hall is just so massive in scale in comparison to its exterior. Scale is always a great trick of adding to that feeling of intimidation by a setting. One of the coolest set pieces to me personally is us being able to scale the organ itself and make it all the way up to this jump pad on one of the nearby torches to reach the rafters. I don't entirely know how to explain it as much, but it's just so damn cool to me to see the hall from this perspective. The hall itself is just so damn jarring in a good way. It really adds to the setting itself, and the music, every note of the way, perfectly captures the true eeriness of this world. I know it's weird, I'm talking about level design in the music section specifically, but it's mostly because I didn't really want to spoil the music portion of the church till now, so you know what, it's my video, shut up. Though through all of this talk of music and only music and just music, I've still yet to highlight one particular theme that takes the idea of adaptive music and makes the very reason why Mozart never made a second album. Oh, he's dead? The bass theme itself is so simple yet so effective. It has such a nice subtlety with the opening segment with the xylophone, but then switches on a dime to a more deep bass part. And then to a more higher tone. And then to bells. It's honestly just such a perfect song for an evil witch. In fact, something I only just somehow learned recently is that the song itself was based on the 1907 children's song Teddy Bear's Picnic.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise.
If I remember correctly, Grant Kirkhope, the lead musical composer of the game, stated in an interview that the reason he chose the song as the baseline of her theme was mostly because of the bear theming itself, and the sort of irony the theme conveyed within context. Once again, don't quote me on that. But this is just the base theme. If you go near a world, or even a world's puzzle for that matter, the theme itself changes its instrumentation to mimic that of the world it's near, such as Treasure Trove Cove's more sea shanty-esque instruments and the sound of waves crashing by the shore. Or Clanker's Cavern with the drip drops of water mixed with the deep bass used in that world. Gobi's Valley and its use of drums and wind instruments. Even Mad Monster Mansion with its old church organ rendition with the sounds of wolves and owls in the distance is just so damn atmospheric and a great teaser for the world you're about to enter. I think I'm really into organs. Like seriously, Grant did not have to go this damn hard with these themes. They were already pretty damn catchy and fit perfectly for the worlds anyway, but just the added adaptive nature of each and every theme, along with the hard work clearly put to add to each vibe is just... I haven't even pointed out the fact that every single damn world has their own underwater rendition that plays seamlessly every time you dive underwater. But not just for every world theme, there's even renditions for altered themes for sub-areas as well, some of which aren't even accessible to here, such as the machine room from Rusty Bucket Bay that has an underwater theme. Where water. Or even a character named Nabbit who has a house that also has an underwater theme, which at least to my knowledge doesn't have water inside, yet they made a theme for it anyway just cuz. You can literally find an entire playlist of just the underwater themes from the game, and honestly, I'd highly recommend them. Especially if you're into chill songs to listen to while studying, sleeping, drawing, stabbing, and all that. I would honestly argue that the music plays such an important part to why this game is just so damn special. Every single world I enter just puts me in such a good groove and rather joyful headspace. Like, this game is literally just the definition of comfort and pure fun, and the music of this game has always been a large reason as to why. Now, through all of this over-examination of a randomly fun platformer, you might have noticed that I only talked about 8 worlds excluding Spiral Mountain and Gruntilda's Lair. What of the 9th world? Well, I'm so glad you hypothetically asked. Why don't I introduce you to the final and most difficult world in the entire game? Already, this world starts out incredibly different from the others. Arriving in this level introduces us almost to a smaller hub of sorts with 4 different paths. There's a door with a flower, one with a sun, another with a leaf, and finally a snowflake, with each door accompanied by a mini diorama of their own with what appears to be all 4 seasons. The music itself is incredibly mellow-tone, and though it has a beautiful beat, it sounds like it's missing something. Like the song itself is stuck in some sort of limbo and unable to properly break into a bigger theme. But that all changes the moment we walk through the flower door. Now these are some beats to kill the local bird population to. All of a sudden, the theme has switched to this extremely lively theme, accompanied by the sounds of birds singing and the gentle sound of rain. It's such a perfect theme that starts out rather gently before slowly starting to break into a bigger, grander beat. Almost like the world is just waking up. The entire level itself is filled with green fields, a nearby lake, and a ginormous tree that towers taller than any structure in the entire game. It's honestly such a beautiful level, and the atmosphere itself is just so damn charming. But don't get distracted by the joyful, charismatic music and beautiful dew-covered grass. This world is downright the most dangerous place in Grunty's lair, and houses one of the greatest evils one could muster: gravity. The level revolves around the giant tree itself, with it taking you upwards through some of the most anxiety-inducing platforming I have ever experienced. Just one wrong step or bullshit bird and your bare ass is falling about the equivalent of a 10-story building. And the platforming itself is extremely tight on this level, especially the higher you go, where error can lead to a very swift assault by Sir Isaac Newton. I know what you're thinking. Okay, yeah, this is a pretty damn good level, but the final level? Sure, it may be difficult, but kinda a bit underwhelming for what's supposed to be a final test. Why do I only have 30 notes? Oh, you sweet summer child, it's because you've only explored a fourth of this world. F***ing what? Hey, yeah, remember those other doors in the lobby area I touched on? Yeah, those are all seasons, if you somehow couldn't already tell, and getting to the top of the tree in spring reveals a button that opens the door to summer. It may be the same world, layout and all, but you experience it through every season from spring to winter, where there's always something different. Whether that be the lake drying up in summer, or new scaffolding and bridges made in fall, or even the great amount of sloped terrain from the icy snow of winter. There's always something different or new to find in each season, making every one of them feel like their own unique world in a sense. It is legitimately one of, if not the most creative world idea I've ever seen in a platformer. Like, I love how we go from the liveliness and almost morning nature of spring to the scorched ground and bee-covered plains of summer. What used to be leaves just being sprouted from the sides of the tree are now fully grown leaves that you can platform up as a shortcut near the top of the tree. This little shack in construction in spring is now almost fully complete with a roof and all. It's just missing a few things. This beaver guy in spring is trapped out of his house from a giant boulder, from which you can't do anything about, seeing as it's underwater. Though in summer, with the lake dried up, you can now easily help him by breaking said boulder, but you're unable to actually go inside for your reward due to the incredibly sloped incline. At least until fall, where the lake finally refills, allowing you to break into this beaver's house. There's so much connectivity with the seasons, and the actions done in one season can directly affect something in the next. Such as this baby eagle you can help hatch in spring, then feed during both summer and fall with caterpillars, all the way to winter to where it's grown into a fully grown eagle, now ready to leave the nest. There's an awful lot of child abandonment in this game. This world may have the same amount of notes and jiggies in comparison to any of the other worlds, but it is downright the longest and most difficult one by far. Replaying this game, I was able to beat each world around like 30-ish minutes with a couple notable exceptions due to skill issues. Collect-A-Thon, on the other hand, took me a good hour and a half to fully complete. I remember little kid me played this level a lot, as well as being the most engraved level in my mind in comparison to any of the others. Yeah, it's definitely because I got stuck on this world. I'd once again love to highlight the music, because just like, god damn, man. Every season has a completely different vibe going on, which makes sense of course, but it's still so damn amazing how fitting and catching each and every version of this one theme is. Like the beautiful peppiness sounds of spring. To the slower, more string-centric sounds of summer, accompanied by the beautiful buzzing of bees. Then to the more cooling, relaxing feeling of fall, with the sounds of woodpeckers and even frogs ribbiting to the rhythm. All leading to winter, taking a similar book from Freezeezy Peak with a sort of Christmassy feel, but being much more relaxed this time around, with the xylophone this time taking much more of the reins in comparison to the more grand and centric strings of Freezeezy Peak. The slightest sound of bells in the distance mixed with the howling of the chilling cold air. That just gives it such a more homey vibe this time around. This level is generally one of the biggest examples I bring up for how big of a role music plays in video games. Every theme just fits so perfectly and helps to capture the essence of every feeling given by each season we traverse through. Grant Kirkhope, for the love of God, is a musical genius, and I could never imagine this game without his beautiful, catchy, and adaptive music to accompany me. For a final world, Collect-A-Thon Wood, in my opinion at least, is one of the best there is. Everything I've listed before comes together as one big final test of sorts. Honestly, despite the amount of times I've definitely raged on this level, this world is as close to perfect as it can be. Wait, were we fighting a witch? Yeah, so after beating the hardest level in the game and making it all the way up the tower, what does our final showdown between this absolute bitch witch look like? Well, a game show, of course! So, your final test in this game is Jeopardy! Gruntilda's Furnace of Fun, specifically, where you have to reach the end of one of these many tiled paths to then obtain a prize. I'm personally eyeing the dryer myself. But each tile on the ground will force you to answer a trivia question about the game itself to progress forward. The Banjo Kazooie tile is just a general trivia question about something in the many worlds. The I one being a photograph game of guessing the world from a picture. The Note being a question either on a specific world's theme or a sound effect from collecting an item. While the Timer is just a boss rush. Are you following me here? Okay, cool, because it gets worse. Gruntilda's tile will be a question in regards to specifically something about her, such as the fact that she showers in baked beans, for example. Grunty's sister Gruntilda basically gossips about her older sister relentlessly throughout the entire game, and you can find her all over the lair, giving you a brand new fact you absolutely did not want to know, but you'll absolutely need to. Not to mention that the questions asked are completely specific to your playthrough, and are chosen from a whole 250 different Gruntilda facts. So yeah, you might want to start dishing. The Joker and the Skull tiles actually have a similar idea, being a completely random question from one of the other tiles, but with a twist. By beating the Joker tile, you're given a Joker card, which allows you to freely skip a tile, making them a rather helpful resource, especially against these Skull tiles, which, if you fail, by the way, I used to really hate this game show as a kid since I had the mental capacity of a grape, but now as an adult with the mental capacity of a grape, I actually really love it. Granted, I know this game rather inside and out with how much I've played it over the years, but I can still see this as being a fun twist on the final bastion sort of level. Just testing your knowledge of the game itself and seeing how much you actually remember. It's honestly such a rather fun subversion. But why should I just keep telling you about it when I can show you? Here's a character from the game. Do you know the dumb thing's name? No. Is it Drinker? No. Oh, I'm already doing great at this. Here's a character from the game. Do you know the dumb thing's name? No, not even a little bit. I'm assuming Gerald. Pinjo. Listen up, now to make your choice. Which character has this dumb voice? I'm not pretty, I'm quite a mess. What do I hide under my dress? Oh, these are the Gruntilda questions. It's a flea circus. Right. Oh my god, I actually remember this. Oh my god, the dishing with Gruntilda has paid off. Listen up, your choice. Which character has this dumb voice? That's the camel we abused. I know that camel anywhere. Wait, his name is Gobi? Oh, we kicked him out of his valley. I like a cuddle and a fight. What do I take to bed at night? A scary teddy bear, my dirty undies, a huge sweaty baboon. Is it a huge sweaty baboon? Oh my... Why? How dare you look? Stop that stare. What color undies do I wear? What the f*** are these questions? Is it spotty purple? Let's see if your memory's foggy. What's the name of my pet doggy? Okay, that I know. Like Chomper. Okay, fellas, we're on the last one. If I f this up, I'm dead. See the picture on my screen? Oh my god, the gods have blessed us. It's Mumbo's mountain. After beating the game show, Gruntilda scurries away further up the tower, allowing us to finally claim our prize. After finally saving Tootie, we make our way down the tower and the game's credits roll in the most rare way possible, with having every character shown as a part of a cast together, which is just so damn adorable. If it didn't go on for an entire 5 goddamn minutes. Yeah, the Xbox version goes on for almost 3 times as long due to the larger team who made the port, and even had to repeat the reel of characters due to how much larger the team was, kind of ruining it a bit, honestly. Regardless, we're given a fun scene of the gang just having a nice day to relax after the adventure they just trudged through. Quite a fitting end to this amazingly joyful game. We forgot to kill the witch. Going back up the tower and up the spiral staircase, the final clash is upon us. So you're probably wondering, what do you get for collecting every single note and jigging in the game for being a masochist? Well, you get a refill of all of your consumable collectibles that even respawns when you die, as well as double health for having almost every jiggy. Wait, what about the last two? Don't worry about that. Now, the final battle between Gruntilda is surprisingly rather difficult. The fight challenges nearly every move you've learned throughout the entire game. She starts out by using the power of vehicular bear slaughter, then having a section to use eggs to shoot her down, then having to take to the skies to fight her on her level by firing the Kazooie. and finally having to avoid meteors and awaken the nearby Jinjo statues to fight her back. All ending with one final giant Jinjo that requires 4 eggs in each side while still having to avoid meteors as well as this unavoidable projectile that requires Wonder Wing to avoid. Guess who died here? This fight is hard. I've died to her countless times on previous playthroughs, though it really only took me 2 tries somehow when I replayed this time, so clearly I'm a god. Still, for a 3D platformer, this fight is a perfect challenge of everything you've learned amidst playing, and it really feels like this is it. This is the final battle. Everything I've done until now has led to this specific moment. A good final boss is one that requires your attunement of all of your knowledge and muscle memory from the entire game in one final big clash. And Grunty, without a doubt, is one damn good final boss. On the other end of the spectrum, we got Bowser from Mario 64, where we pretty much do the same exact thing 3 different times on 3 different occasions. But honestly, most fights in 3D Marios just can't really compare to Gruntilda somehow. Pretty much every final Bowser fight in these games, at least mainline in the series, has a similar idea each and every time. You pretty much fight the boy, wait for a move he's so determined to kill you with, find a weakness in said move, kick his ass, and repeat 2 more times. The only game in the series that doesn't entirely do this is Mario Sunshine, where the only difference is that you're firing yourself into the air to ground pound about 5 times to tip over his levitating bathtub above a volcano. Innovation. After awakening the giant Jinjo and totally not stupidly dying at the last second, he yeets Gruntilda off the tower that somehow doesn't kill her, but instead a boulder manages to trap her underground. And now, for real this time, that's the end of Banjo Kazooie. Or is it? Yeah, no, still kinda yes. During the final cutscene with a random realistic girl in a bikini for some reason, Mumbo teases the idea of a new adventure of sorts. For collecting all the Jiggies, including the 2 extra stragglers, you unlock hints towards some secrets in the game for you to find involving these mystery eggs. The original use for this, known as the Stop and Swap, was actually a cool feature that was meant to link Banjo Kazooie to its future sequel, Banjo Tooie, in some way. So what was that way? Shit if I know. The actual feature itself was never implemented. The original intention would have been to find secrets in Banjo Tooie to come back to in Banjo Kazooie to unlock some secret areas that were previously made inaccessible in the base game, that would then carry back over and affect something within Tooie. Though the whole thing of carrying over data from one game to another ended up being too damn powerful for the Nintendo 64, and it was just straight up starting to break them to where Nintendo themselves had to directly tell Rare to just scrap the idea, because they just couldn't do it without bricking systems. So the feature basically died, with the codes for the eggs only being found within the game's code through data miners. Though I will say they did try to bring it back in the Xbox release in a way, but instead of having it linked to Banjo Tooie like it was supposed to, they decided to link it to nuts and bolts. And all you can unlock with it is just some car parts in the game. Great. Hey, Editor Red here. Turns out they actually did relink the original Stop and Swap with Banjo Tooie, I believe a good year after Nuts and Bolts came out, which is rather nice. Though the actual prizes themselves are still a tad lackluster. On the cool side, you get some cool new moves that you get to use in the game, such as a new form of Kazooie masochism, and the giant ice key found in Freezeezy Peak actually helps turn Kazooie into a dragon, apparently. Pretty cool. Though on the other end, 2 of the eggs are purely cosmetic for the Xbox 360 store, such as a gamer pick or a background that are straight up unusable on Xbox One. Cool, at least they found a better use for it, but still feels a tad bittersweet in all honesty. I don't think I can ever describe the love I have for this game, more than any other. These 2 have been so engraved in my mind for so long, and I still have memories of the excitement to finally get off for the weekend and get home and just to play more of this silly ass game with a talking bear and his masochist bird. I used to honestly just boot the game up and just wander around the many worlds, not for any particular reason, but just to take it all in and immerse myself in this world I held so dear. But you grow up, and when you're hoping that it'll almost seem to live forever, like Zelda or Kingdom Hearts have to me, Banjo for the most part had stayed on the Nintendo 64. At least the Banjo I remember. And honestly, with the direction Nuts and Bolts went, the negative reception, and Microsoft in general, I honestly never thought I'd really be able to see these 2 come back in any form again. When Banjo finally got into Smash, I cried. Even when I was writing the script, hell, even while I'm recording this, I'm still tearing up from just seeing that trailer again. Like, a duo so dear to me, and one of the happiest memories of my childhood after all these years had finally gotten into Smash, and in glorious HD. And just getting to see the many other reactions people had during it, and seeing the overwhelming amount of people who also freaked out and or cried from the reveal, honestly just makes me so much more happy than I think I could ever describe. It's like finally being able to see an old friend again you haven't talked to since you were kids, yet it still feels like they never left. And yeah, I know Banjo isn't like a perfect 10 out of 10 game with glowing reviews off the board and a 6 out of 10 from IGN, but no game really is perfect, along with any piece of art in general. It's still such an amazing and charming time, and a great way to kick back and just play something fun, and I don't think I'd have it any other way. This barren bird will always hold some form of real estate over my heart, and if somehow this video has gotten you at least kinda interested to try it, I implore you to give it a shot.